Okay, let's rank the James Bond actors. Ahoy hoy everybody, and welcome to this video where I'm going to attempt to rank the actors who have portrayed James Bond in the Eon James Bond film. So I'm not including the 6 million people who played him in the 1967 Casino Royale. I'm also not going to consider Never Say Never Again when I'm talking about Connery, I don't think. I'll begin by saying the Bond series is sort of my big passion when it comes to films. I love all of them to different degrees, and if you want to know what those degrees are, I have ranked the Bond films. I have my own things that I am looking out for and that I want in an actor portraying Bond. They are largely based, as you will discover, on the fact that although I was watching the films from a very young age, you know, they were the family films that we all watched, it was only through reading Fleming's novels that I became a huge Bond fan. And so I like my Bond to be like Fleming's Bond to an extent. But I love all these actors. There's not a Bond film that I wouldn't happily sit and watch at any time. There's not a Bond actor who I wouldn't want to have played Bond. Does that make sense? I think so. So yes, without any more ado, of the 6 actors who have portrayed James Bond to date, my least favourite is unfortunately Sir Roger Moore. I enjoy all, as I've said, all Roger's Bond films. So I enjoy his performance in Live and Let Die and For Your Eyes Only. You know, they feel the most Fleming-esque to me. I've got a lot of time for his performance in the other films, except maybe View to a Kill, which he was too old for the role then. But he's just, he doesn't portray Fleming's Bond in those films, in my opinion, anyway. So that makes him my least favourite. But as I say, I still, love Sir Roger Moore and love watching his Bond films. Number 5, I really did find this difficult from here on. Sort of top was easy, and Roger at the bottom was unfortunately easy. But the middle 3, I struggled. But for number 5, I'm putting Pierce Brosnan. I really like his performance as Bond. I do. I think the only thing that knocks it down is that while in some points he is very Fleming-esque, there are some points where he is very Roger Moore-esque. And it's that sort of dichotomy that makes me lean towards having him a bit lower. If he, I don't mind, when I say I want Bond to be Fleming-esque, I don't mind humour in my Bond films. And, I like my Bond to be able to handle pithy one-liners. But it shouldn't be a comedy performance, and I think there are times in Brosnan's films where it is more of a comedy performance. There's, lots of times where it's not, and he's a great actor, and I've got a lot of time for him and for his work outside of Bond, but it's just those few moments that denigrate him somewhat. But I still, as I say, I still love his work as Bond, and I think he's what the series needed at that time. But my number 5 is Pierce Brosnan. My number 4, yes I thought I did, is Sean Connery. My problem with Sean Connery is that his portrayal of Bond is very inconsistent over his Eon films, which to an extent obviously was also true of Roger Moore. Hence, 2 films from his first one and his fifth were sort of my 2 favourites, which shows a lack of consistency. But with Connery specifically, he changed drastically through the run. So Dr. No, I love his performance in Dr. No. He's very much the cold-hearted killer type character side of Bond in that film, which is great, but it lacks a little, there's a bit of humour, but it lacks certainly a bit of humour. It picks up once he meets Honey. For me, probably From Russia with Love is where he gets it spot on Fleming-wise. Goldfinger, the humour's ramped up just that little bit more, which again works really well. It's still a really strong Fleming-esque performance. But then as he starts to tire of the role, or specifically tires of the hoopla around the role, you see it starting with Thunderball, but then particularly with You Only Live Twice, his performance gets lazy. And it's slightly phoned in. Diamonds Are Forever, he then treated it as a comedy role, pretty much. There's very little drama in his performance, and it is, pretty far from Fleming's Bond by that point, which was a shame. So that's what knocks it down. I have huge appreciation for what he did for the, there would not be a series of James Bond films if it wasn't for Sean Connery. I know that. And, I really love all his films to one extent or another, particularly Dr. No and From Russia with Love. But yeah, as an actor portraying the Bond I want to see on screen, he only hit that for a few of his films. I had a strange voice then. I don't know if that was my ALEXA or not, but whatever that was. Maybe it will become clear when I play this back. But yeah, as an actor portraying...
Sorry, I'm not sure.
I've got a new voice. That's what's confusing me. I've suddenly got a male voice on it, which I haven't changed that. Bizarre. Okay, right. Anyway, yes, as a performer portraying Fleming's Bond, which is what I want to see on screen, he loses too much during his run for me to rank him any higher. Number 3 is George Lazenby, who has both the advantage of having only done one film and the disadvantage. So many people write him off because he's only done the one film, which therefore he can't have been any good as Bond. It was his choice not to come back. The producers of the film wanted him back for the next film. He walked away from the role, wrongly as he now admits, after some bad advice. But he was in no way a failure as Bond. His portrayal of Bond is strong. Other people dismiss him because there's a big chunk of the film where his voice is dubbed out of necessity because he is portraying... He is in disguise as Sir Hilary Bray. So George Baker, the actor who played Hilary Bray in the film, overdubbed his voice when he's in disguise to make it more realistic. But even then, he's still, although he's not providing the voice that we hear, he obviously provided the voice on set, and he's still sort of matching the voice performance, and also, well, the voice performance is matching him, because I'm sure it was done afterwards, but also the physicality of the role is still very much Lazenby. But, in that one film, He has some strong comedic moments, particularly on Pix Gloria, where he's pretending to be Hilary Bray, and he's, portraying himself as a effete, probably gay man who's not interested in all these ladies, but suddenly starts sleeping with all of them. There's certainly the humour around that. He's more than proves himself in the action scenes. It's probably between him and Craig for which Bond is best at action. And then with Craig, it's hard to tell how much of it is him, because with modern technology where they can do face replacement, it's stunt doubles are a lot more convincing at looking like the actual actor. But yeah, back to Lazenby, it was that physicality that largely won him a role, and rightly so. All the fight scenes he takes part in are magnificent, and he more than holds his all. Is that the right phrase? But is more than equal to the stunt performers. But he also, handles the emotional stuff, the heartbreaking final scene, the falling in love scenes, all sort of those bits he's truly convincing in. And for me, he has, the Fleming touch. So yeah, number 3, quite easily, is George Lazenby. Number 2 is Daniel Craig. I feel, although the quality of his films are mixed, I feel his performance is strong in all the films. His character, he's the only one who actually has the arc through his 5 films. Very definite arc for those of you who have seen or are aware of what happens in No Time to Die. But, we see him from the very start of his career and how that progresses. And his character does change throughout the 5, but it's still at heart the same character. I feel part of that change is also because Craig becomes a better actor through the series, just, through experience and his work outside of Bond. I feel very much that his performance in Knives Out, which is magnificent, helped him in No Time to Die become... Also, at least, I'm sure he actually asked for a bit more dialogue than he'd had in some of the previous films. Having portrayed a character who was dialogue heavy in Knives Out, and getting to play with that dialogue, I'm sure that's a big part of the reason why he had a more verbose role in No Time to Die. But yeah, as I say, his character certainly develops over time, but he's always Bond. He's very much Fleming's Bond in modern times, obviously, but he has those characteristics. The only thing maybe missing is sort of the gourmand side of Bond, the love of good food and good alcohol and that sort of stuff. That's largely dismissed in this series, or his series of films, to an extent, particularly the food side of it, and also the womanizing side, if you like. Although Fleming's Bond, he did settle down, obviously, much as Casino Royale was Craig's first film, it was the first Bond novel, and plot wise they are very similar, and Vesper Lynd is the love of Bond's life, who betrays him and dies in Casino Royale. Spoiler for a 70-year-old novel and 15-year-old film, or however long it is now. So that matches. But, although in Fleming's novels he does have, different love interests in every novel, we do find out that, for example, Tiffany Case in Diamonds Are Forever, he does settle down with and live with after the case. And very much, so he's not quite, probably, in the novels as much of a womanizer as he was in the early films, where he'd bed, 2 or 3 women a film. Very much, or certainly largely, we've sort of, 1 woman per novel. But Craig's films reduce that even further, really. I mean, Quantum of Solace, he doesn't really, he doesn't have a love interest. He beds Strawberry Fields. But, there's no proper love interest Bond girl. Camille, I think it is, isn't it? Olga Kurylenko's character isn't really a love interest for him. Skyfall, he has his dalliance with Severine, but she's more of a side love interest that, she doesn't last long. The Bond girl in that film is M, really. So those elements are missing to an extent from Craig's portrayal, and that's probably why he's number 2 as opposed to number 1. But he's, there's a lot of Fleming about his portrayal. So my number 1, obviously, because he's the only one left, is Timothy Dalton. And from the minute he was announced, I knew he'd be good. I thought his portrayal was excellent in Living Daylights, even though the film was written without knowing he would be Bond. So it was written knowing that Roger Moore probably wasn't going to be back, but it was written more in a Roger Moore style, if you'll pardon the double use of Moore, which would have suited Pierce Brosnan, who was the original first choice, but then couldn't do the role at that time. So they had to rewrite it to suit Dalton more, and largely that works. There's a couple of couple of moments in it that are still a bit too frivolous, if you like, for Dalton's portrayal, and he does struggle a bit with the one-liners, particularly in that film. But he's very much Fleming's Bond, particularly in Licence to Kill. The bits that are missing from Craig, he loves his food and drink. That's made clear, especially in Living Daylights. But also, although he's a one-woman man in Living Daylights, that is very much in keeping with Fleming, and two girls in Licence to Kill. He has that love of a woman that is a bit missing in Craig's Bond, but he's got the hard edge. He's convincing in the fighting. He's more than convincing in the dramatic moments. He's just such a great actor anyway, but I just think he was the perfect match for Bond. It's a shame we didn't get more from him. So yes, my number 1 is Timothy Dalton. Now, I know most of you are not going to agree with my list. There's huge Roger Moore fans who will have him at the top. There's certainly huge Sean Connery fans who will have him at the top. I hope you can see my thinking and my reasoning, even if you don't agree with it. Any abuse I get will just be deleted, but I'm open for debate and discussion. Please feel free to do so in the comments. As I've mentioned earlier in the video, I have ranked for Bond films, so you can go back and watch that. I'm probably going to start a Bond playlist, actually, because this is my 3rd or 4th Bond video, because I've also ranked for theme songs. So yeah, this is my 3rd, I think, specific Bond video, and there will be more to come. So I will start a Bond playlist, so if you're interested in those and you haven't watched them, go back on my playlist. Thank you for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks. Bye.